Okay, so this is part two of the Rambam on Avos, sorry, on Avos 4:5. It's not really a shiur on the Rambam, but yeah, it's gonna be shiur just on the Rambam. Um, so what we're gonna do is so once again, I had a very last minute change of plans in terms of what I envisioned for tonight. So last time what we did was we read and discussed the Rambam's treatise on this topic, which is what I'm calling his commentary on Pirkei Avos. And I said last time we would try to understand as much as we can from this treatment of his topic. Instead, what we did was we just read his codification in the Mishneh Torah, and we also started to look for heterim, for allowances in the Rambam's words. Okay, but I wouldn't say I bit off more than I could chew. I think I should have either made last shiur a doubly long shiur or like stopped early. Okay. So what we're going to do now, so I think what we need is, okay, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I want to start by reviewing the Rambam's commentary on Avos. Okay. Then I want to learn through some other sources in the Rambam. So I want to go over the Mishneh Torah and then some of the other sources that talk about this, and then analyze the Rambam's view. Okay. Now it's entirely possible that that is going to take us up through our allotted time, and that will be good because then we'll understand the Rambam. I somehow naively thought that, oh, we'll do the Rashbatz. Okay. But then, and I did this on Shabbos, when the Shabbos Chavrusa, but let me just show you how long the Rashbatz is. Okay. So it starts here, Haperush. Oh, am I sharing? Yeah. Right. Okay. Starts here and then goes all the way down here. Okay. So, oh, no, more until here. Okay. So I just don't think that's going to work. I wanted to learn him because he disagrees with the Rambam. So if we do have time, then instead of doing the Rashbatz this time, we'll do the Sforno, who has like one paragraph, just so we can get some counterbalance to the Rambam. And if we don't have time, we'll save the Rashbatz and the Sforno until next time. Okay, so that's the plan. So it's going to be very Rambam focused tonight, Rambam centric focus tonight. Okay, so let's start by rereading the Mishnah, and we'll reread the questions because just so we can have them in our mind as we go through the Rambam. So Rabbi Tzadok Omer, Rabbi Tzadok says, Al ta'asem atara lihis gadol behem. Don't make the words of Torah into a crown through which to make yourself great. V'lo kardom lachbor behem, nor a shovel to dig with. V'kachai Hillel Omer. This is what Hillel said. Uti ishtamish bataga halaf. Someone who uses the crown will pass away. Halamarta, from here you learn, kol hanehnem b'divrei Torah notel chayav min ha'olam. Anyone who derives benefit from words of Torah, his life is taken from the world. Okay, so questions are, what's the idea of Rabbi Tzadok's statement? Okay, and it's funny because he just says don't, right? He doesn't like. I'm not actually sorry. Hold on. I actually don't know. I guess he is quoting Hillel. So I guess what's the unit? In other words, he didn't just. The Mishnah could have just said, Hillel Haya Omer, anyone who uses the crown gets cut off, and then it could have explained it. But there's like this combo of the three clauses in the Mishnah. So like, what is the overarching message? Question two: why does he use these two specific examples or metaphors of the crown and the axe, or the shovel? Three: what does the statement inferred from Hillel in the third clause mean by benefiting from words of Torah? Aren't we supposed to benefit from words of Torah? What's the relationship between benefiting from words of Torah and then utilizing the crown? Those even sound on paper like two different things, but the Mishnah seems to be treating them as like one can be inferred from the other. Four, what's the relationship between Rabbi Tzadok's statement, Hillel's statement, and the inference? Okay, the subject's the same, but what does each clause add? Okay, actually, you know what? I'm going to just clarify this. Okay. What do we mean by the crown of Torah? Why not just say Torah like the third clause? Six, is there a contradiction between Rabbi Tzadok, who speaks of making Torah into a crown, and Hillel, who speaks of using the crown, right? Either the crown exists or it doesn't. It seems to be using the crown equivocally there. Seven, what exactly is the outcome, this outcome of halaf, if he passes away and his life is taken from the world? Is it this world? Is it the next world? Is it both? Is this even true? When does this happen? Do we see it happen? What is the implication of notel chayav min ha'olam as opposed to other deathly phrases like mischayev benafsho or chayav misa? Sorry. As I said that, the thought came into my mind of anyone who interrupts his Torah to like look at it and say how beautiful is this tree, is mischayev benafsho. And as I was saying that, I literally looked and was like, oh, such a beautiful sunset out the window right now. But I'm bringing it back to the Torah. So anyway, and I forgot what idea we said on that was. All right. 8, why did Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi combine a statement of Rabbi Hillel with Rabbi Tzadok, given that they lived in very different periods? Yeah, that's why. Okay, I kind of assumed when we read it last time, and I didn't even question this, that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was stitching together these 3 statements. But now I'm realizing maybe Rabbi Tzadok said this and then also said the Hillel thing, although now I'm not remembering what the chronology was. Okay, not gonna get bogged down into that this time. 9, to what extent is this Mishnah for Hasidim in training? And then to what extent does this apply to everyone? And then 10, at the end of the day, what are the practical parameters? Okay, so those were our questions. Again, keep those on do we want to keep it on the side burner or the back burner? Let's keep it on the back burner, okay? Because I really want to make it a goal of trying to understand the Rambam today. Okay, so I was thinking, how should we review the Rambam? And I think because last time was the first time people were reading it, then we went slow and summarized it in bullet points. But I kind of am tempted to just reread the English in a speedy way, just to get his words in our mind. I don't, not that I don't trust our summary, but I think his words are very nuanced. And so I know I read it in Hebrew last time and translated it, but this time I'm just going to go with the ChatGPT 4.0 English one, since I was Yotze with the authentic reading. Okay. So he says, I had initially intended not to speak on this commandment as it is clear, and because I know that my words on this matter may not be agreeable to many of the great Torah scholars, perhaps even to all of them. Nevertheless, and we noted, I'll just try to review what we noted. We noted kind of a contradiction, like, so it's super clear, but everyone disagrees with you. Okay, fine. So that says something about something. All right. Nevertheless, I will speak without concern, showing no favoritism to those who preceded, nor those who are present, which we said is his first indication that he is talking not just about an abstract problem, but seemingly people in the present who are going to object. Okay. Okay. Meaning this is not just like, I mean, again, I'm kind of getting this from later on, but like Rambam is, this is not just, that, oh, Rambam has a shita on something and others are going to disagree. This is Rambam criticizing the lifestyles of many of the Chachamim who existed in his time. So it's like, it's big guns. Okay. Know that it has already been stated, do not make Torah a spade to dig with, meaning do not consider it a tool for earning a livelihood. Okay, that's note number 1, right, is a kli laparnasa. Okay, and it further explains that anyone who benefits in this world from the honor of the Torah cuts his soul off from life in the world to come. Okay, that's another thing we're going to have to think about, because this is the closest we get to him directly explaining the Mishnah, right? So it is benefiting in this world, okay, so not benefiting spiritually or whatever, from the honor of Torah, okay, right now, not just from Torah itself, but from the honor of Torah, and his soul is cut off from Olam Haba. So we have to ask, how does that happen? Okay, in fact, let's write that here. Question is, how does this result in a loss of Olam Haba? Okay, to ask the question a little facetiously, Rambam doesn't say that there are 14 Ikarim, and one of them is don't benefit from the Torah in this world, and not only that, but I don't even think in the Rambam's list in Hilchos Tshuva, I'm going to make sure that this is the case. In his list in Hilchos Tshuva Parak Gimel, when he lists the 48, how many? When he lists, I think it's 24. Am I getting that mixed up? Right. So he counts 24 people who Chazal say don't have a chelik in Olam Haba. Some of them are literally you lose your chelik in Olam Haba, and then some of them are and then he lists a few more people who are he says that no, where does he say it? Oh yeah. He says Yesh averos kalus me'iluv alpha pichein amru chachamim shaharagil behen ein lo chelik l'olam haba. So he has the 24 categories of you literally lose your chelik in olam haba, but then he has averos that are lighter than these, and the chachamim said that you lose your chelik in olam haba because if you accustom yourself in them, then you lose your chelik. But they just said it like as a deterrent, okay? And look what he lists. Hamachane escavero, someone who coins a nickname for his friend. Hakori l'chaver b'kinuyev, someone who calls his friend by nickname. Okay, again, this is obviously a negative nickname. Hamalbim pnei chaver barabim, someone who embarrasses his fellow in public. Hamiskaved b'klon chavero, someone who takes pride in the disgrace of his friend. Hamavaze tamid chachamim, one who degrades tamid chachamim. Hamavaze rabosa, one who degrades his rabbis, his teachers. Hamavaze es moada, someone who degrades the holidays, and hamachalas hakachim, one who desecrates kachim. Okay, those 8 don't seem to include this case of using the crown of Torah. Now you could make a whole convoluted argument and say that if you use the crown of Torah, then you're degrading yourself, and that's you can make arguments, but in other words, my point is he doesn't list this. I'm not aware of any list of the Rambam, either the 13 Ikarim or the 24 losses of Olam Haba, or the 8 light examples where he says that you lose your chelik in Olam Haba for this. Okay, so that's so I'm going to add that as a question. Why doesn't the Rambam list this anywhere? Okay. Interrupt if you have questions, by the way. I know this is a review, but this is essentially a relearning. Okay. So he says, people have ignored this clear statement, casting it behind them, and have clung to the plain meaning of sayings they did not understand, which he'll quote later on. I will explain them. They imposed regulations on individuals and communities, making the Torah's appointments a source of income, and they led people to foolishly believe that it is necessary and obligatory to support scholars, students, and those who make Torah study their profession. So that is his first objection, which is imposing these obligations or pseudo obligations on people to get their financial support as a livelihood. Okay, that's his thing. He condemns number 1, his practice number 1. Okay. Then he says, all of this is a mistake. There's nothing in the Torah that supports it, nor any foundation upon which to base it. If we examine the histories of the sages of blessed memory, we will not find among them any imposition of obligations on people, nor the collection of money for exalted yeshivas, not for the heads of exiles, nor for judges, nor for Torah instructors, nor for any appointed individuals, nor for others. Okay, so this is now expanding his critique, not just on people who impose things, but even people who collect for yeshivas. Okay. Instead, we find their communities included both the extremely poor and the very wealthy. God forbid to say that they were not benevolent and charitable, but the poor person, if he had extended, meaning the poor chacham, okay, I'm going to modify this is our 3rd error we found in chat. It was not even an error. The poor, I'm going to just say, scholar, okay. If he had extended his hand to take, they would have filled his house with gold and jewels. However, he did not do so. Rather, he sufficed with the work from which he earned a living, whether with ease or with difficulty, and disdained what was in the hands of people, since the Torah prohibited it. So this is his 2 pieces of evidence, one piece of evidence, which is that in the history of Chazal, you find poor chachamim, and we know that people were rich, and we know that people were generous, and yet no one took care of these chachamim. What must it be that they did not collect? Why not? They must have held that it was usher. Okay, then he gives examples. You already know that Hillel the elder was a wood chopper, chopping wood and learning before Shemaiah and Avtalion, while being in extreme poverty. His stature was such that his students were compared to Moshe and Joshua, and his least student was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. It is inconceivable to any rational person that if he had agreed to accept support from his contemporaries, they would have allowed him to chop. It is inconceivable that they would have allowed him to chop wood. And Hanina ben Dosa, about whom it is said the whole world is nourished for the sake of Hanina, and Hanina, my son, is satisfied with the measure of carobs from the Sabbath eve to the Sabbath eve, and he did not ask for anything from any people. Okay, so these are 2 examples. Then he says, and Karna was a judge throughout the land of Israel, and he would water fields. By the way, there's another reason why I'm going through this again, because when we get to the Rashbatz, Bli Neder, next time, he's going to go through these same chazals and learn them differently from the Rambam. So I think it behooves us to remember them and review them. Karna was a judge throughout the land of Israel. He would water the fields. When litigants came to him, he would say, either you provide someone to water the fields in my place while I deal with you, or you compensate me for the loss of my work and I will judge you. So that's example number 3. And this is our first instance of a heter, okay, which is what we'll call schar batela, which is where you pay someone someone pays you, the chacham, to take off from your work to be involved in judging these cases while you get paid for this. Okay. Did I mention last time? I can't remember if I brought this up. Did I mention my high school Rebbe, who was from the Mir, who said this about how he gets paid for teaching?
No.
Okay. So what he said This is he was I think he was British. Um, and he said, I remember him saying, when I don't know how this topic came up, but he said, do you know how I get paid to for teaching when the Torah says or when Chazal say you can't get paid? He says, because I could be working at NASA right now. I have that kind of brain, but instead I'm choosing to spend my time here teaching you, Now that I'm using as an example to say what the Rambam does not mean. Okay. Maybe someone else says that, but the Rambam Karna is saying basically, I have an hourly job or whatever, wages, right? Day wages as a laborer. And I have a certain hourly charge. So if you want to use that hour for your judging, you got to pay me for my time. Okay. So people will often lump those things under, like they'll lump it under like a big banner of like, oh, you're being paid so you don't have to work. And again, we will see other people who say that that's a legitimate heter. I don't think that's what the Rambam is saying. Okay, at least not here. Okay, onward. The Israelites of their generation and others were not cruel, nor were they not benevolent. Okay, I know malevolent is the antithesis of benevolent. Is unbenevolent a word? Imbenevolent? I don't know. Like just not benevolent. And we do not find any sage among the sages who was in a difficult situation, reproaching. I'm going to say rebuking his contemporaries for not supporting him. God forbid. Rather, they themselves were pious, truly believing in God and in the Torah of Moshe, which promises reward in the world to come. They did not permit themselves to act otherwise, considering a desecration of God's name among the masses who would think that the Torah was just another means of livelihood, thereby degrading it. And the one who does this despises the word of God. Okay, a lot here. So first of all, his other piece of evidence was not only do we find that the Chachamim in past generations were in poverty and were not collecting money, but we also don't find that they rebuked the people in their generations for this state of affairs. Okay, and those are two separate pieces of evidence. Okay, then he gives his first reason, okay, for why this is an objectionable practice is it'll be a chilul Hashem in the eyes of the masses who will come to regard Torah as a means of livelihood, and they will degrade it, and then that is someone who is considered someone who despises or scorns the word of God. Okay, so that, I mean, it's a multifaceted piece of reasoning, but that is his first reason. Okay, and then we see from there another possible heter, which is what I wrote in my notes last time. So far, the Rambam is saying that the real problem is the effect, and this is not an intrinsic problem. Okay, which, by the way, we will see others who say, funnily enough, people who hold by a more lenient position from the Rambam, saying that this is an intrinsic problem. Okay, but the Rambam seems to be saying no, it's a problem with the Kabod HaTorah. And hypothetically, if you could find a case in which Torah would not be degraded in people's eyes, maybe then you could collect for Torah. Or to the opposite, if people view supporting Torah as a way of honoring the Torah, so then maybe that could be a possibility for a heter. Okay, unless we find our evidence that the Rambam holds this is intrinsically bad. Okay. Then Vanessa's question was, oh, I'm not going to go review that right now because we answered that. I don't want to confuse things. Okay. Then he says, however, the error of those who argue against the truth and explicit statements by taking money from people willingly or unwillingly. Okay, there we go. And that's another clarification of the practice he condemns is even voluntary giving, he says, is not good for people to accept. So the people who argue, that's based on narratives found in Talmud concerning individuals with physical impairments or elders who have reached an age where they can no longer work, having no recourse but to take. Otherwise, what should they do? Should they die? This is not what the Torah commanded. You will find the case brought as proof. She is like merchant ships. She brings her food from afar, referring to a disabled person who cannot work. But with the ability to work, the Torah does not provide a means for such support. That's not. Im hayicholes. Oh yeah, right. Meaning, if a person has the ability to work, the Torah does not provide a means for such support. Okay, so he's saying people bring a proof from these statements of Chazal where people were supported. Refutation, these people were disabled. Okay, counter argument number 2, Mishlei Pasuk, some drasha there. No, that was also about a person who couldn't work. Okay, Rav Yosef, peace be upon him, would carry wood and say, "Great is labor, for it warms its owner," meaning that when his limbs became tired, they would become very heavy. with the burden of the wood, and his body would surely warm up. He would praise this and rejoice in it, and his heart was content with the portion given to him due to the virtue of self-sufficiency. So this is evidence number 3 that Chazal not only tolerated this, but they found positive virtue in the work itself and in the exercising the midah or practicing the midah of being content with what little you have. Okay, and then he says, I've heard those who are easily misled cling to the statement, one who wishes to benefit may benefit like Elisha, and one who does not wish to benefit should not benefit like Shmuel Haramasi. This does not resemble the matter at all, but rather it is a distortion by those who bring proof from it, as it is clear and leaves no room for error. For Elisha did not accept money from people, much less impose and obligate them with laws, God forbid, I'm going to say regulations. Rather, he would only accept hospitality, such as staying with someone when he was traveling, eating with them for a night or a day, and then going about his business. Shmuel did not enter anyone's house, nor did he eat their food. In such matters, the sages said, if a Torah scholar wishes to emulate this, not entering anyone's house, he may do so. Likewise, if he wishes to be hosted by someone due to the necessity of travel or similar reasons, he may do so. For they have already warned against eating without necessity, saying any Torah scholar who increases his meals in every place, etc. And they said any meal which is not for a mitzvah, it is forbidden for a Torah scholar to benefit from it. Okay, so this is counter argument number 3. What about, it says, like Elisha, you could benefit. Refutation? No, he didn't collect money. He just had occasional hospitality when he was traveling. Possible heter is in the line. Hold on. I thought he mentioned explicitly honor, that they wanted to honor him. Lisha. Oh, yeah. Amna haya makabel hakibud bilvad. Okay, see, this is when you gotta have. All right, so this is a mistake in ChatGPT. He would only accept the honor. Okay, so this we said is another possible heter, which is not kavod haTorah directly, but kavod of Talmidei Chachamim, right? So there is a mitzvah to honor Talmidei Chachamim, okay, and when and people do that in different ways. Some of the ways are legislated, and some of the ways are like minhag, or just the way people do this. So he's saying that this innkeeper wanted to honor him by hosting him, and that would be a way to receive benefits. So the question is, can that be the basis of a heter for honor of chachamim, and if someone wants to like support a chacham financially? Okay. And then he says, why should I extend on this matter? That was a weird wording. Why should I go on at length, let's say? Why should I go on at length on this matter? I will recall the incident clarified in the Talmud, and the obstinate can do as they please. Okay, here's the Rabbi Tarfon story. There was a man who had a vineyard, and thieves would come to it, and whenever he would inspect it each day, he would find his grapes decreasing and missing. He had no, He had no doubt that one of the thieves had targeted it. He was constantly distressed about this throughout the grape season until he harvested what he could, dried them, and gathered the raisins. It is common for people when they gather dried fruits, some grapes and raisins fall, and it is permissible to eat them because they're considered ownerless, and their owners have left them due to their small quantity. Rabbi Tarfon once happened upon this vineyard, sat down, and was picking and eating the fallen raisins. The owner of the vineyard came and thought that he was the one who had been stealing from him all year, not recognizing him but having heard his name. He hurried him, grabbed him, overpowered him, put him in a sack, and ran off with him on his back to throw him into the river. When Rabbi Tarfon saw that he was in danger of dying, he cried out, "Woe to Tarfon, that this man is killing him." When the owner of the vineyard heard this, he let him go and fled, knowing he had committed a great sin. Rabbi Tarfon spent the rest of his days from that day onward in distress and lamentation over what had happened to him, having saved his life by invoking the honor of Torah. He was a wealthy man and could have said to him, "Let me go and I will pay you such and such dinars," and paid him without revealing that he was Tarfon, saving his life with money, not Torah. Right, that's the line here. They said, all the days of that righteous man, he would lament the matter and say, "Woe to me for having used the crown of Torah, for whoever uses the crown of Torah is uprooted from the world." They further explained because Rabbi Tarfon was very wealthy and he could have placated him with money. So that's evidence. I thought we were up to evidence number 4. Yeah, we're up to evidence number 4. Okay. Okay, then we're almost done. Sorry, this was a lot longer than I remember. But good. Look, review is important, okay? Even though we're taking the first half hour to review. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi of blessed memory opened the storehouses of wheat during a year of famine and said, "Whoever wishes to take their sustenance," okay, I'm going to actually use the same term here, parnasa, livelihood, may come and take their livelihood, okay, because that strengthens the question. On the condition that they are a Torah scholar. Rabbi Yosan ben Amram came and stood before him, and he couldn't recognize him. He said to him, "Sustain me." Rabbi Yehuda asked, "At what level are you in learning?" He responded, "Sustain me like a dog or a raven," meaning even if I have no wisdom, just as God sustains an impure animal and bird, sustain me, for an ignoramus is not less than them. And he gave him. He later regretted having given him because of his words and said, "Woe to me that an ignoramus has benefited from my property." Those who informed him of what had happened said, "Perhaps he's your student, Yonasan ben Amram, who does not wish to benefit from the honor of Torah as much as possible, even through the subterfuge." He investigated and found it to be so. These two incidents should silence any dissent on the matter. So this is evidence number 5: is Rabbi Yonasan faked his not being a Torah scholar, faked being an Am Haaretz in order to avoid getting sustained from his livelihood through the Kavod of Torah. Okay, so then we asked, why did Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi provide a livelihood only for Torah scholars? Isn't that a violation? So we theorized maybe he wanted to give priority to Torah scholars, but then why was he upset? Okay, fine. All right, then we have the heterim. However, what the Torah permitted for Torah scholars is that money may be given to a person who will conduct business with it at their discretion if they so choose. The one who does this is rewarded for it. This is referred to as placing inventory in the pocket of Torah scholars. Additionally, their merchandise is to be sold first before other merchandise, and they are given precedence in the marketplace specifically. So they got two heterim: is you give your money to someone to manage it, and then you could get the profits, or you could also get first crack at selling the merchandise. And then he says at the end, these are laws established for them, just as he established the gifts for the Kohen and the tithes for the Levi, according to what has been received by tradition. For these two actions are sometimes, key phrase here, for these two actions are sometimes done by merchants among themselves out of respect, even if there is no wisdom involved. At the very least, a Torah scholar should be considered as honorable as a respected layperson. So there, his explanation is giving a basis for a heter, which is that if you see a practice where non-chachamim give each other honor or benefits, financial benefits even, so then a chacham can do that, because that's not, you can't say that that is taking from the Kavod HaTorah intrinsically, because that guy is getting this privilege and he's not a chacham, so that is a basis for this. Okay, and then he says at the end, similarly, the Torah exempts all Torah scholars from governmental obligations, from taxes, billeting, personal levies, which are called head money to be paid for them by the community, and from the building of walls and the like. Even if the Torah scholar is wealthy, he is not obligated in any of these matters. The Rimi Gash of blessed memory ruled in this matter for a man in Andalusia who had gardens and vineyards for which he was liable for 1,000 dinars, and he ruled to exempt him from the tax because he was a Torah scholar, even though he was the poorest of the Jew, even though the poorest of the Jews pay the tax. This is the law of the Torah, just as the Torah exempts Kohanim from the half shekel tax, as we've explained in its place in similar cases. Okay, so that was header number 7. Is the Torah gives these rights to Talmidei Chachamim, but that's and that has nothing to do with wealth, right? In other words, I think the Rambam is saying it's independent of his wealth to show he's not making a livelihood on it. It's just a right that the Torah gives them. Okay, so after we reviewed all that, okay, any new questions or insights, or just observations that came up? Sorry, I think that was a long review, but I'm not sorry. Yeah, Lauren.
Just like noticing that he's giving like historical proof, like we've never seen this example, and I don't know, I guess I'm wondering like how strong of an argument that is, because what if there is something that he didn't know about? You know what I'm saying? Like then
Okay,
how would he
right,
handle that?
right. I hear what you're saying. I think he's bringing historical proof in the sense of like, Maaseh Rav, and like two things. One, in terms of Maaseh Rav. So in other words, like, if this is a halachic area, so if there are halachic incidents that serve as halachic data and they happen to come from history, so then like we have to factor that in terms of halakha. And this is very common, anecdotes are very common as halachic evidence. So like that's one vein in which he's looking at it. The other vein is in terms of midos. And look, I think his assumption is that if there were any, the presumption is that Ravina and Ravashi, and all the other compilers of Torah Sheba'al Peh compiled everything that is relevant for us to know about how to conduct ourselves, beyond the letter of the law. So to say maybe there's a case that happened that is precedent setting and midos precedent setting that just no one knew about, I think is a weak argument,
Right, right. Okay. I
Yeah.
guess also like are would I guess also, I guess what I was maybe drawing upon that is that like he's not necessarily bringing like a proof, like a pasuk or like another halacha
Right.
that shows his point.
Right. It's
So
funny though, because he does call these clear statements that that the law is clear, But you're right. He's not bringing, there's no Mishnah, well, other than ours, that says don't make Torah into a livelihood. And so this is kind of all he has to go on. What I thought you were going to ask, which is a interesting question, is what would the Ram, I don't know how much the Rambam would what he would say, but like, you know, times change, especially when it comes to covenant Torah. And I'll show you a weird proof of this. Okay. Um, where is this? Dalid? Yeah. Okay. Okay. And this is a weird proof. Okay. So this is in the halachos about honoring Talmidei Chachamim. Okay. Keta Malamdim. How do they teach? Okay. Like, how are you supposed to, what does shiur look like? Okay. Harav Yoshev Barosh. The Rav sits at the front. Vatalmidim lefanav mukafin atara. Atara. No. Okay. The chachamim sit in like a semicircle. Kadeshi hu kulan roin as harav v'shomim devarav, so that they can all see the Rav and hear his words. That is a yeah, fine. V'lo yeshiv harav al kisei v'talmidav al karka. The Rav should not sit on a chair with his students sitting on the ground. Ella ohakol al art ohakol al kisaos. Rather, everyone is either sitting on the ground or on chairs. Uvarishona haya harav yoshiv hatamidim ondim. Initially, the Rav would sit and the Tamidim would stand. Umi kodem churban bayasheni nahagu hakol lalamid latamidim vehein yoshvin. But then before the destruction of the second Beis Mikdash, then everyone had the minhag of teaching with their Talmidim sitting. Okay, so small example, but this is in the halachas of honoring the Chachamim, and you see that the minhag changed. And if you were in an era where like students stood during shiur and you said, oh, let's sit, what argument would you get in return? That's a degradation to the Chachamim, and that's a degradation to Torah, But things changed, and now things are even more different, And we see this as well with different, a lot of areas of kavod, things change. Like, in many areas in the yeshiva world, people address the Rosh Yeshiva in the third person, right? And I will always remember when Rabbi Chait was at Northwest Yeshiva High School at the Q&A, and a student raised her hand and said, does the Rosh Yeshiva hold by such and such, and Rabbi Chait said, can you repeat the question? And then she said, does the Rosh Yeshiva hold by, hold by such and such? And Rabbi Chait said, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And Rabbi Fox said to Rabbi Chait, she's talking about you, But Rabbi Chait in our yeshiva, people just don't refer to Rabbi Chait in the third person when they're talking to him, So like things change. So what I thought you were going to say is yeah, the fact that Chazal didn't do this, but evidently in the Rambam's day, people did do this. Maybe there has been a change in what is considered kavod Torah, and I think that is a strong argument because it's dependent on kavod. Yeah, Lauren?
right. Also, I'm thinking further along, like, does society norms make a difference also? Because like nowadays,
Right.
professors get paid, and there's academic grants where you're getting money to study
Right.
and do research. So
Yeah.
why
Okay,
would that
good.
not apply to Torah?
Okay, good. So we are going to read someone now in a little while who says that the Rambam would hold by that. Okay. So possible header number 8 is I'm just going to write this for the note here, is that that granted the Rambam might have 100% proof that this was never done in the time of Chazal. Okay. But since this is a matter of kavod haTorah and kavod chachamim, in a sense, right, and standards of kavod change, perhaps nowadays, i.e., in the Rambam's time, things have changed. Okay. Okay, so now let us go and read a couple other sources from the Rambam, and then we'll try to put together his shita. Okay, so the Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah Gimel Yud. Okay. So we read this very quickly at the end just to like whet your appetite. But now we'll read it. Oh, you know what I should do? I should probably copy and paste this into the document. It's 2 paragraphs. Okay, so this is 10 and 11. Okay. Just 1 second. Rambam, Hilchos Talmud Torah, 3, 10, and 11. Oop, not livelihood. Didn't do copy. Okay, so Rambam says like this. Oop. Yeah. Okay, this is it. Okay, so he says, Kol hames no. Kol hamesim alibo shiazuk b'Torah. Anyone who sets his mind on involving himself in Torah, v'lo yaseh melacha, and not doing work, v'isparnes min tzedakah, and taking his livelihood from tzedakah. Okay, now this is a significant thing. Tzedakah. Okay, tzedakah. Now, what do we read into that? That's going to be a question here because does that mean any money or like specifically from tzedakah, like, you know, the kupa or like the tamchui or people, giving him like he's an ani? Okay, so just keep that as a question. Harizeh chilos Hashem. This person desecrates the name of God. Ubizas Torah degrades the Torah. The kiba me'or hadas extinguishes the light of the religion. V'garam ra la'atmo causes evil to himself, evil or harm to himself, I should say, harm to himself. The natal chayav min ha'olam haba takes his life from olam haba. Lefi she'asar lehanat b'divrei Torah ba'olam hazeh, because it is prohibited to derive benefit from words of Torah in this world. Okay, now again, I mentioned last time the Rambam does not include this on any of his lists. What I am curious about now is how many places in the Mishneh Torah does the Rambam identify things that cause you to lose your chelik in olam haba that are not on his list, and also going back to the question of phrasing, natal chayav min ha'olam haba does seem different than ein lo chelik l'olam haba. So that might be a difference there. Okay, Amru Chachamim, the sages said, okay, then he quotes our Mishnah. Anyone, Kol Hanene Midivrei Torah Natal Chamin Olam, anyone who derives benefit from words of Torah takes his life from the world. The Od Sivu Amru, they also said and commanded and said, Lo tasim atar lizgadol behem v'lo kardim lakrim. Isn't that interesting? He switches the order. Don't make them a crown to glorify yourself with, nor a shovel to dig with. The Otiv of Amru, they also commanded and said, Ehovas Malacha, love work, usanas rabbanus, and hate the rabbinate. Okay, which again was very different back then than it is now. V'chol Torah she'eni imam malacha, and any Torah which is not accompanied by work, sofa betela, will in the end be nullified. V'sof adam ze shehe melastes as abrios, and this person will ultimately come to steal from others. Okay, and then he ends off with what you should do. He says, Mala gadolahi, it is a major virtue, l'mishu misparnes b'masei yadav, to one who earns a livelihood from the work of his hands. Umidas chasidus harishonim, umidas chasidim harishonim, and this was the trait of the early pious sages. And through this, one will merit all honor and good in this world and the next. As it is stated, we had this earlier in Pirkei Avos, Yagia kisocha, through the exertion of your hands, you will eat. Ashracha v'tov lach. you are praiseworthy and it is good for you. Okay, Ashrecha ba'olam hazeh, you are praiseworthy in this world. Yeah, and it is good for you in the world to come, which is entirely good. Okay, so what questions do you have? I mean, the main questions are going to be on the first part because that's really his statement and everything else is quoting. But what questions or observations do we have here? Yeah, Ayala?
What do each of these
Yeah,
like things mean?
right. That's going to be
Specifically
main.
extinguishes the light of their religion
Yeah, that's
sounded
strange.
interesting to me.
You also usually don't hear the Rambam talking about religion, right? As separate from Torah. Yeah. Another question I have here is this? Yeah, see, okay. The context here is chapter 3. Okay, chapter 3 in Hilchos Talmud Torah is Bishlosha Kasarim Nichturu Yisrael. With 3 crowns, the Israel is crowned with. Israel is crowned with 3 crowns. Keser Torah, the Keser Kahuna, the Keser Malchus. The crown of Torah, the crown of Kahuna of priesthood, and the crown of kingship. Keser Kahuna Zachabo Aaron. The crown of priesthood was merited by Aaron. Shnemar v'Haisa lo Lazaro Acharav Bris Kunas Olam. Keser Malchus Zachabo David. The crown of kingship of monarchy was merited by David. Shnemar Zaru Olam Yihye v'Kiso Keshem Shnegdi. Okay, so both of those are hereditary. Keser Torah, but the crown of Torah, Hari Munach v'Omenu Muchal Lakol. It's sitting there, standing there, it's resting and standing and waiting, ready for anyone. Shnemar Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe Morasha Kilas Yaakov. The Torah was commanded to us by Moshe, an inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. Kol mi sheyirtzeh yavav yito. Anyone who wants can come and take it. Okay, so that's how he starts off, and then he says. Wait, no, I just missed it. Oh yeah, Vav. Misha nasa'u libo l'kaim mitzvazo koroyelav lios muchtar b'kisra shel Torah, someone whose heart moves him to fulfill this mitzvah of Talmud Torah properly and to be crowned with the crown of Torah. And then he gives a bunch of instructions and a bunch of mitos. So this halakha that we just read is in that set. Okay, so my question is, so let's start doing this. Okay, questions and problems. Okay, so we have Ayala's question, which is, what do each of these phrases in halacha 10 mean? And then my question is, if this is halacha, why does the Rambam codify it in Hilchos Talmud Torah, Perek Gimel, okay, which is about like the crown of Torah, and specifically post halacha vav, which is the like prescription for how to earn the Keser Shel Torah. Okay, he really should set this forth as a separate halacha in the regular chapters about the basic halachos. Okay, so to me that's just an odd placing, and it indicates something about the about this thing. And the funny thing also is, correct me if I'm wrong, he never says it's usher, right? He just says it's very bad. Okay. So again, I'm not saying, obviously there are things that are not usher that are worse than isurim, but it is just interesting that where and this is more of a question on the Rambam in general. Is the address of this in halacha or is it in ethics? So yeah. Ayala, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say it's interesting that in this presentation of it, it seems to be focused on like the person's character. It's like
Right.
a personal flaw versus
That's a
like
good
in the
point.
other presentation, it was about like desecrating the Torah.
Yeah. Why the emphasis here on the character of the person, as opposed to what it does to the Torah? Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to read to you a few more sources from the Rambam. Okay, so this is in the best edition of the Mishneh Torah for learning purposes, which is the Rav Yochai Makbili version that has all these helpful footnotes on the side. Okay, and we're going to read this long footnote here. Okay, some of we already read. So he says like this: Divrei Rambam kan nokvim meod. The words of the Rambam here are very sharp. I assume nokvim means sharp, like penetrating. I don't know. I don't know modern Hebrew. He already elaborated on this elsewhere, which is what we read in Avos. V'sham diber al mi shekavu la'atzmam zechuyos al hayechidim v'al hakihilos v'asu es hamenuim hatoranim l'chukim muchasim. Yeah, so he says there the Rambam talked about people who impose like privileges or like obligations onto individuals and communities, and they make Torah appointments into like fixed regulations. So he quotes the part, the key part, which is the Chachamim did not permit themselves to do this because they saw this as a Chil Hashem in the eyes of the masses, who would think that the Torah is a job like all the other jobs that you get a livelihood from, and it would be degraded in their eyes. Okay, now here's where Rav Makbili is going to try to bring out as much heter as possible from the Rambam. Omnam, however, mutter, it is permissible, the af ratzui, and even desirable, l'sayeya leparnasas talmid chachamim, to assist in the livelihood of a talmid chacham, b'derech shenasis gam l'mi she'eno chacham b'chachmas Torah, in the same way that you would assist someone who is not a chacham in the chachmas Torah. The kach haTorah hitir lechacham she'adam acher yenahel es kasbo v'yavir lo es revach mimeno. That's why the Torah permits a chacham to have another man manage his money and give him a cut of the profits. This is what's called placing inventory in the hands of Tamid Chachamim. But not v'nasno lo zechus limkor eschor asotchila, and the Torah gave him permission to sell his wares first. Okay, so that's the first step. So again, I kind of like jumped the gun in terms of reading that out from the Rambam. But if you just read the Rambam, it would sound like he's just talking about those two things. And the reason why those two things are mutter is because people do them for non-chachamim. But what Rav Makbili is saying is, no, there's this larger category of there are ways that people support or give livelihood to others, and those ways are mutter to do with the chachamim. For example, these two practices. Okay, he's like flipping it. And on that basis, I think this is where he goes into what Lauren was talking about. Oh, no, not yet. Prat lazeh tamid chachamim peturim milashalim masim gam im heim ashirim. Okay, fine. So chachamim are exempt from the taxes. Okay. The od kol advarim shetrichim l'shmira sa'ir. Okay, fine. It goes more on the taxes here. Okay, hold on. Okay, and then it goes to war. Okay, harambam atzmo his parnas beheter mi'isuko shel achiv David b'kasbo shelo. Okay, I think I mentioned this. Rambam himself had his livelihood in a permissible manner from the business of his brother David with his money. Shu made, as he testifies, uviado mamon rav li v'lo v'lacherim, that my brother had in his possession a lot of money, mine, his, and others. Ad shetava achi b'yam, until his brother drowned in the sea. Of Oz Kinir Panah Rambam Lehis Parnas Karof and Mumcha. That's when the Rambam started to earn a livelihood as a physician. Okay, now this is where he gives a big heter, which I think is arguable whether the Rambam would hold this. Ein mania shemi shemizbata milimudo haprati mashkia es hazmano bahora letzibur o b'tzarche tzibur yitel es scharo. There is nothing to prevent someone who would be like have to like abstain from learning, from his particular learning, in order to immerse his time in psak for the tzibur or needs of the tzibur. There's nothing to prevent such person from yito aschar, from taking payment. Okay, ukagon mashakas of Rabbeinu, like the Rambam writes, Talmidei Chachamim hamalamdim hilchos shchita lekohanim that Talmidei Chachamim who teach the laws of Shechita to Kohanim, v'hamalamdim lehem hilchos Kmitza, and also who teach the Chachamim the laws of Kmitza, which is like, getting the scoop. Kulam notlim schar mitrumas alishka. All of them would get payment from the Beis Hamikdash treasuries. Okay, so he's saying, sounds like he's saying, if you're going to be engaged in in other words, it's not for your personal learning, but you're doing it for teaching Torah or even the needs of the community, and you're getting paid for that, then he's saying that that's mutter, and he's basing it off this Rambam that Talmidei Chachamim would get paid to teach the Kohanim Shechita and to teach the Kohanim halachos. Okay, now it is interesting. The Rambam has that in Hilchos Shkalim Daled Daled, which is about, I guess, where the temple funds are used for. But Rav Makbili is universalizing from that. Okay, and what does that sound like? That sounds like what modern teachers do. Right? It's like they could be involved in their I can tell you this personally, right? Is that I guess now maybe I have one chavrusa where sometimes it's my own learning, but pretty much all my learning is for teaching, and so that's what they're he's saying that the Rambam would hold by. You could be paid for. Okay, v'chein kasav. The Rambam also writes l'gabe dayanim, for judges shedanim es hagazlanim b'Yerushalayim, that the judges would get paid when they would judge people in Yerushalayim. Okay, now here is where he talks about what Lauren was saying. I think mitoch kach. So up until this point, Rav Makbili is certain that the Rambam would hold by this. This is now Rav Makbili's conjecture or inference. Mitoch kach nira. From here it seems shebizmanenu, that in our times yihi muskam ala Rambam, the Rambam would agree lahatir mimun limudim l'talmidim b'meshach zman katuv, that the Rambam would agree that it is permissible to give a scholarship or like a stipend to Talmidei Chachamim for a fixed amount of time. B'dome lemimun memshalti shel limudim beuniversita, just like I don't know what mimun memshalti. I just want to make sure I get this. How would you translate mimun memshalti? What was the phrase? Shel limudim beuniversita. Shel limudim beuni. I don't know how to spell universita. Universita. Government funding of university studies, right? That's what like a grant. That was what Lauren was saying. Okay, why? Because such grants also exist in other realms. V'lav davka b'Torah, and not only in Torah. V'eno tzedakah, and it's not tzedakah. Okay, so that I think. Hold on a second. L'darcham shel gedolei chachamim Yisrael b'inyan zeh re'elel rabim cholkim al Rambam. Okay, so many people disagree with the Rambam. V'hitiru l'talmidei chachamim l'kabla as parnasasam min tzibur, and they just permit Talmidei Chachamim to get their livelihood from the tzibur. Okay, but that we'll have to wait till next time. But he's saying that that again, this is all based in the Rambam, that if you're supporting Chachamim in a way that exists in realms other than Chachma and Torah, then that's totally fine. And yeah, people get grants for their research. And I think another good example of this is patrons, right? A patron of the arts is someone who will support an artist because they value the production of art in the world, and they want to do that. And so the fact that if someone can be a patron for an artist, you can have a Patreon at Rabbi Shneim's Patreon. No, but you have a Patreon for a patronage of Torah. Yeah, Lauren.
Yeah, I guess what does he mean by it's not tzedakah? Like, is there something to mean? Because the Rambam also said in Hilchos Talmud Torah about getting tzedakah for your livelihood.
Right.
So I'm kind of curious what that means.
Right. I suspect what he means by that is that it's not tzedakah in the sense of you are giving money to the poor to sustain their needs. Like the mitzvah of tzedakah midoraisa is demach soro asher yachsar lo, that when someone has a lack and is poor, you fulfill their needs and you provide for them until like their needs are met. And he's saying that this is just like a completely different plane of like that's not like here's a good example. Okay, would you call a university grant tzedakah? No, right? Would you call an academic scholarship tzedakah? No, like yeah. Are you supporting someone? Yes. Are they not needing to have livelihood? Yes, but it's like conceptually a different means of support.
Right. Well, it's like a stipend. A stipend's not really tzedakah, I guess.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying. Right. Yeah. Now it is interesting. Also, he does throw in here the meshech zman katsu for a limited time. Okay, and I don't know where he's getting that from or how davka he's being about that, but yeah. Okay, so one more source from the Rambam, and then we'll put things together and then try to. I think maybe I think it'll probably be most productive if we focus. See, this is where the Rambam spells out why he's against this practice. I think so. If we go to this one more source and then look at the Rambam and try to define these 5 things, then I think we'll have a shita. Yeah, Tamar.
Just a quick thought on the meshech zman katsuv, the
Yeah.
limited time. Maybe that's just because that's how grants and stipends work.
Right, that's true. That's true. Right, you don't have a you don't have like it's not like Supreme Court justices. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, there's one more source. Okay, so this other source is from so on. I know I've said this before, but I'm just gonna say it again in case someone's listening to this for the first time. So on Al HaTorah, I don't know if they have this everywhere. So they have the Pirkei Avos of the Rambam. Okay, they have, which is translated by a new translation by Rav Shelat. Okay, then they have the Pirkei Avos of the Rambam in Arabic. Okay, I guess they don't have that yet for this one. Then they have the standard printed editions of the Pirkei Avos of the Rambam, which I think is translated by Ibn Tibon. Then they have this thing, which is a Beur LePirush Rambam LeMishnah, a commentary on the Rambam's commentary by Rav Shelat, where he basically just brings down any conceivable source that like elucidates the Rambam. Okay, so I have this whole long thing on what we read in Avos, but I'm only going to read one thing, which is a letter that the Rambam wrote. So I'm going to read this in the Hebrew, even though I have the English there. Hamakor ha'acher hu be'igeres ha'Rambam. Wait, was there a Hamakor ha'acher hu be'igeres ha'Rambam l'tamid ha'chashuv Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. So another source is in a letter from the Rambam to his prominent Talmud Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, Avuro nechtav Mor HaNevuchim, who's the one who wrote the Mor Nevuchim. Okay, for those who don't know, the Mor Nevuchim was a series of letters to this one student. Okay. And he does say at the beginning, he says, I'm sending this, I'm writing this for you and people like you. But can you imagine, like, the Rambam writing the Mor Nevuchim for you specifically? Like that's got to be a high level Talmud, and what a dedicated Rebbe, Okay. Hatalmid shoel as Rabo, ha'imhu mirashe lo liftoach midrash. Equals base midrash ulalamed. So the student asked the Rambam, asked his Rebbe, if he would permit him to open up a base midrash and teach. Okay, so that's what you have to do halachically. If you're going to open up a school, you have to ask your Rebbe for permission. V'zeh lashon haRambam b'tshuvaso. Here's the Rambam's answer in his tshuva, and I can't remember if this was written in Hebrew or not. I want to say it was written in Judeo-Arabic, so this might be a translation. Hine hirshisicha shetiftach midrash utalamed the Torah halacha. I hereby permit you to open a midrash and to teach and instruct halacha. Ulakachas mehem, but to take from them, meaning to take money from them, lo iatzecha, I do not advise you. Elazuz echad mechayatus o nagrus o ariga al derech hahistachrus. Ehov etzli mirashus rosh hagalus. Okay, I'm going to read this in English here. 1 dinar, 1 coin from tailoring or carpentry or weaving as a means of earning is more beloved to me than the patronage of the head of the exile. V'im tikach man, and if you take from them tizbaze, you will become disgraced. V'atzasihi, my advice is shetase yegiacha hamischar v'limud harafua, that you make your livelihood from engaging in trade and studying medicine. Im ha'esik b'Talmud Torah be'emes, while you are involved in Talmud Torah. Okay, end quote from the Rambam. Meforish b'devarim hachronim shel Rambam. It is clear from these later words of the Rambam. Rak miyaitz latamido lo lakach hasachar al halimud. Is he's only advising his student to not take payment for learning. Ach eno, or for teaching. Ach eno roe b'kach isur v'chil Hashem. He does not see in this any prohibition or a chil Hashem. V'hainu mishum shadavar ba biyuzmas hatamidim. Okay, because this comes from the initiative of the students. Okay, yuzmat is a modern Hebrew word. This comes from the initiative of the students, asher ponim el harav, who approach the Rav, umavakshi mimenu lahafsik me'avodaso ulihis panos alehem, who ask him to stop his other work and to focus on them. V'him yishalmu maskurto, and they will pay his salary. Okay, so in other words, he's saying that it seems from the Rambam here, which this is late in his life, by the way, that when it came down to the practicality of it with his student, he did not say it's usher or even a chil Hashem, right? He's just saying they're going to look down on you, and it's not advisable. Yeah. We go on. But Rama Omer alula latzeis gam mize hisbazus larav. Okay. So he says, I don't know if Rav Shelat's talking about himself or what, or it's just like shul ravs. But he says that this will also come to degrade the Rav. And as is known from experience, Vein tov la'adam ela she's parnas miyagia kapav v'lo milimud Torah. It's best for a person to support themselves from their work of their hands and not from the study of Torah. And then he quotes from I'm just going to read this in English here. He says, this is what he wrote in Talmud Torah, so he quotes all that. And he says, in the next halacha, as well as in his letter to Rav Yosef, he refers to one who has prepared another means of livelihood, but is approached and asked to stop his work and dedicate himself to teaching Torah to others. And it could be said that the same applies to training for a teaching position, and they will pay a salary. This is permissible according to the law, but the Rambam does not advise doing so and sees great virtue in not resorting to this. Yeah, just a comment here on this potential for the rabbi to be disgraced from this. What do you think that's referring to? If the rabbi's paid a salary, like what disgrace is he talking about? Yeah, Tamar?
I don't know if this is what it's talking about, but I kind of got reminded of like when you have like a school board or something of like people who are the financial backing and then they don't have good ideas, but everyone has to listen to them.
Right.
Not saying that all school boards are like that, but you know that's like a thing that can happen.
That's what I'm getting also, is that like you basically have people, well, we're paying your salary, and that makes it so that they will, are like, they feel or are perceived as though they're calling the shots. And like, there's a phrase that's used in American government. I don't know where it comes from or who uses it. I serve at the pleasure of the president. That's like what all the people in government say. That like they are, when pleasure is archaic use of pleasure, really means like by the at the ratzon of the president. So like there becomes this thing where really the Rav should be serving at the ratzon of Hashem, and people should be following the Rav for fulfilling the ratzon of Hashem. But it ends up being reversed, where like the Rav is serving at the pleasure of the board, and he's kind of at their mercy, and that also will lead them to look at, well, I'm the one who's sustaining you, so like you should like thank me better. You should have more respect for me. Like it puts him in that position, which I also think is different than a. Look, it could be like this, but like, let me think. I guess it really depends on the particular case. Like this happens a lot in shuls, but like, how like all these professorships, like all the they have like the name of the such and such chair, like each professor has it's like funded by a certain person or dedicated by a certain person, or in the endowment fund, or like the symphony. A lot of these places, like, yeah, these people make the contribution, but they don't have like this hands-on involvement where they're controlling and objecting to what's going on with the person. I think it really depends on how involved the people are in what the Rav is doing and what their relationship to him is that could cause them to get degraded. Yeah, Lauren?
It also could like limit what they're able to teach the congregation,
right?
Because sometimes they'll be like, oh no, if I say that or if I teach them this, they're going to fire me.
Exactly.
And that limits their ability to teach and be
Yeah.
a rabbi.
That's exactly the case. Yeah, actually, I was just listening. This is not really relevant to this, but I just want to mention it because we're talking about like shul rabbis. I'm listening to the Rabbi David Beshevkin on 1840 podcast is doing a series on movements or denominations in Judaism. So he mentioned in passing that one of the things that that Chabad has going for it, one of the many things, is that the Chabad shuls, like actual Chabad shuls, are owned by Chabad. So he says if you get rid of that rabbi, there's going to be another Chabad rabbi who takes his place. Whereas apparently in other shuls, this happened where like you had an Orthodox shul, people who were the community was drifting, let's say to the left, they didn't like the Orthodox shul and stuff, so they got rid of him and then got a more left rabbi and then conservative, and then it became reform. And actually, Dr. Shen was talking about his own shul growing up, that it started off Orthodox, then became conservative, then became reform, then ended up being sold to a church, you know? And so, yeah, the rabbis could end up having to compromise stuff or be ousted. Okay, so now we have enough data to figure out the Rambam Shita, and let's do that through that halacha in Talmud Torah. Okay, so let's make a list of the 5 things, okay, which are, I'm just gonna put this here. Okay, so analysis. Okay, so you have desecrates. Actually, I'm gonna put this in Hebrew. Also, hold on just a second here. You have Hillel es Hashem, desecrates the name of God. Okay, that's one effect. Then you have Biza es HaTorah, degrades the Torah. Then you have Kiba Maor Hadas, that is extinguishes the light of the religion. Then you have Goram Ra'a La'atzmo, causes harm to himself. And then Natal Chayav Min Ha'olam Haba, takes his life from Olam Haba. Okay, so I think the one that we have clearly is degrades the Torah, right? That was from the Pirush Mishnayos, is that the people will come to look at Torah as a kli leparnasa, and a malacha like any other, and that will cause a degradation of Torah. Okay, so that takes care of that one. Okay, and I feel like we have other ideas. It's a question of what ideas we've learned that we assign to each of these categories, and then what have we not figured out yet. So what do you think? Yeah, Ayala?
Specifically ideas that we've learned, or also
No, you
just
can
other
theorize on your own also, but I do think we have you know, I feel like these are like we have the pegs and we got to put them in the right shape holes here, you know. But yeah, go ahead.
So one of them I was just gonna say, is like that he'll come to steal. So either maybe that's causes harm to himself or takes away his olam haba.
Okay, so I think that's a good possibility here. Is yeah, I'm gonna put in causes harm to himself because I don't think stealing would necessarily make you lose olam haba, but the situation he's in might cause him to compromise his halachic observance or his values. Okay. And make decisions which are detrimental. Yeah. Tamar?
I was going to say similarly, the stuff we were just talking about is also under this category of like sort of being beholden to the people who are supporting him.
Right. Yeah. And being beholden to the people who are supporting him. You know, there's one more Rambam I actually want to show you because I think this is relevant. I just want to see. So he talks about kol hanena midivrei Torah. Anyone know the other place where the Rambam talks about benefiting from words of Torah in the Mishneh Torah? I think he uses this language. Yeah, Tamar.
Does he talk about like saying Tehillim on a sick person?
Okay, so that's what I was thinking. It's either there. Oh yeah. Okay, maybe it's both places. Either there or mezuzah. Yeah, I think you're right, though. I think you're right. Let's go to what you said first. So he says in Avodah Zarah, chapter 11, on Halochish alamaka, someone who whispers an incantation over a wound, the Kore pasuk in the Torah and reads a pasuk from the Torah, or reads a pasuk over a baby so that he doesn't fuss. Niach sefer Torah o tefillin al hakatan b'shvil sheishan. Always like here's the sefer Torah. Okay, sleep, my infant, and he put the sefer Torah on the katan. It must be that they had small sefer Torah or something. Or tefillin on the kid so he sleeps. Lo dai lehen shehin bichlal chaverim munachim. It's not enough that they're included in the incantation whisperers and charmers. Ella shehin bichlal kofrim b'Torah. But rather they're in the category of those who deny Torah. Excuse me, shehein osin divrei Torah rifus guf, because they make the words of Torah healing of the body, ve'enam ella rifus nefashos, but their words of Torah are only healing of the soul. Shnemar v'yu chaim lenafshecha. It says they should be life for your soul. V'habari shekara psukin o mizmor mitilim k'dei shetagin alav zechus kriyas v'inatam minasaros v'nazakim harizim mutar. But a healthy person who reads psukim or a mizmor from Tehillim, so that the zechus of reading it should protect him and he'll be saved from sorrows and harms, that's mutar. Okay, so that is possibly relevant, but I'm pretty sure that means that the one I was thinking of is in Ava or in mezuzah, or it doesn't exist. Let's see. I think it's in 613. I think that's how. There's definitely an important Rambam here in 613. No, that's just the regular mezuzah one. Not the amulet. I'm looking for the amulet one. Yeah, here we go. So he says minhag pashut it's widespread minhag shekosvin al mezuzah mibachutz, that they write on the mezuzah from the outside keneged harevach shbein parsha parsha, in opposite the space between the parshios shin daled yud, which is the name of God. But have said there's no harm in that lefishu mibachutz, because it's on the outside. Aval elu shekosvin ba bifnim shemos hamalachim o shemos kedoshim o pasuk o chosmos, but people who write on the inside of the mezuzah names of angels or holy names or a pasuk or charms, harihim bichlal mi she'ein lo chelik l'olam haba. He's included in the people who don't have a portion in olam haba. Elu atipshim, because these idiots lo dai lahem shebitlu hamitzvah. Not only it's not enough for them that they fail to fulfill the mitzvah. Ella she'osim mitzvah gedola shehi yichud shemo shel kadosh baruch hu v'ahavaso v'avodaso, but they take a great mitzvah, which is the oneness of God and His love and His service, and they make it iluhi kamel hanayas atman, as if it is an amulet for their own hana'ah, their own benefit. Kamosh Allah alibam hasacha shezeh hadavar hamahane b'havle ha'olam, as per their foolish thought that arises in their heart, that this is something that helps them in the vanities of the world. So he doesn't exactly use the same language, but he does say nehene, that they benefit, and hamahane b'havle ha'olam. Yeah, Lauren?
Yes, I think from this, like, I'm having an idea of how it could be maybe a chil Hashem.
Okay.
It's not so thought out, I guess, but
Yeah.
I really just like think of it as like an example, in the sense that, like, I feel like because people that, let's say, learn full time as their career and it's just like a standard thing, across the board, in some sense it denigrates the Torah, because I guess maybe that's one, it's so commonplace that you could just do it and that's like your thing. It's not like a special thing that someone has to maybe get. And also in some senses, like, if everybody is supporting you and they're not getting any value from it, then they're like, well, what is that for? In that sense, that also desecrates the Torah in the sense.
Okay, right. So are you saying in number 2 or number 1, degrading the Torah or desecrating?
I guess. Oh, sorry. I mean number. Well,
because it sounds like you're talking about degrading the Torah.
It sounds like that one, yeah. But I think I'm also thinking about, because I'm thinking about like this idea. Maybe I'm just having a lot in my head, but when people learn Torah and they say, "Oh, that's protection for us," like they say, like, we need people learning from morning till night, because if we stop learning, the world's going to get destroyed. I don't know if that's literally true, but that sense that also it's a chil Hashem, because it's also a distortion of the ideas,
right?
And yeah, maybe it's the same. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I can see the I can see what you're talking about being in 1, 2, 3, or 5.
Right, right. It's extinguishing the light of religion because it's supposed to be something like Torah is supposed to be
Right,
something
that I
that
like.
guides
Yeah.
everybody. But then, like when you have this mass thing and you don't see benefits from that, then you're like, it causes you to look down. Like even myself, like I believe in, let's say, learning Torah. But when people say that the learning of the Torah is protecting the Hamas's rockets,
Right.
literally, like what does that mean? That causes
Yeah.
me to degrade the Torah in some
Right.
sense.
Okay, yeah. So I this idea definitely belongs on here somewhere. Right now, to me, it sounds strongest and extinguishes the light of the religion. That, like, Talmidei Chachamim. I'll say it like this: Talmidei Chachamim, are supposed to be luminaries, okay, who spread the light of Torah, of the religion, to those who can't partake of it that way on their own. Okay, but if these Talmidei Chachamim, like, and I'm going to use the extreme example, just mooch off of people to learn in Kollel, okay, and are not, I realize this doesn't cover all the cases that we're talking about here, are not, I guess using it to bring more light of Torah into the world, okay, then they're not luminaries, they're black holes, okay, sucking in the light from around them into themselves. Now, the reason why I'm putting it this way is I think this might be why the Rambam puts it in Hilchos Talmud Torah, chapter 3 about the Kesser Shel Torah, is that, like, we're talking, the audience of chapter 3, he says explicitly, is someone who is trying to get the crown of Torah and to be learning day and night. And that is the people who, again, I don't know about the Kollel people who are doing it for, like, protection, but, like, these are the people who are just, there are Kollos in America where, like, the Kollel people are there and they, like, teach. That's something different. Like, these are people who are just sitting there learning for themselves, and the Torah is not getting out there to everyone. They're just taking, and they're not giving the Torah. So, like, that's going to dim the light of the religion. Yeah, Tamar?
I'm just speculating also on this point that maybe you have sort of like a mixed incentives also. Yeah, I think, I mean, okay, I'm not gonna, I think about this sometimes with math, but I'm not gonna get into that analogy,
Okay.
but that you're sort of incentivized to tell people that what's important is that they support you learning instead of focusing on sort of supporting everyone's learning, or like you might present things as very like opaque or something like that. You might even, let's say, not teach people because you're like, no, I have to be the one to do this thing.
Interesting. Yeah, which category does this go in? But by the way,
I think
maybe
it's the light of religion.
The light of religion, you said?
Yeah, because I would think you'd be misrepresenting like maybe it's the grain of Torah, but I think it's your incentives are a little bit mixed up towards, like, against causing the light of the religion to flourish. Maybe I'm a little bit like speculating, like I said.
Okay, I hear. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you one area they're going to distort stuff. I bet those people in Kollel who are presenting the ideas are not presenting this Rambam. Yeah, Ayala.
So I had two other possible ideas.
Yeah.
One is maybe similar to Mars, and I think it fits best into the extinguishes the light of the religion.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if that can be for like the individual. So like the light is like kind of, I don't know, the enlightening power or like the benefits of the religion for a person. And when you add extrinsic motivation,
Yeah.
it diminishes the intrinsic motivation
Yeah.
and like discourages like actual gaining
Okay,
like actual
so
benefits from Torah.
I actually think that fits in better for the Olam Haba one, and I'll explain why. And I also think that, and again, I can't prove this. If he said it extinguishes the Or HaTorah, then I'd be more open to your idea. But Ma'or really implies like light outward, So I think the effects on others is really what we're gonna have to say for that one. So I think that judging by the like, what does he mean in Hilchos Avodah Zarah when he says that if you whisper an incantation, or sorry, if you say to him over a wound, you're a kofir b'Torah. You deny words of Torah because you're making it into refusal. Really, you deny words of Torah? Like I understand like you're misusing those words. What does it mean you deny it? That sounds extreme. To the point where you lose your chelik and olam haba. So I think that has to do with the motives and the incentives. Is that like lo lishma is very powerful, right? Lo lishma is very powerful and insidious. Okay, if you are anchored in your relationship with Torah to livelihood, that might taint your the way you relate to the Torah itself. Okay, I know that's really vague, but like an analogy is people who like, let's say, I don't know, are musicians, okay, and then make it into a livelihood. Okay, so some people can still love music, but other people like end up hating music because it becomes their job, or not just music, like artists in general, or I mean, in many areas, like if you keep it separate from your livelihood, it could be on its track of lishma, but once it becomes locked into your finances, it can change the way you then begin to relate to Torah as a means of physical sustenance instead of like refuas hanefesh. And so I'm learning that it takes away your life from olam haba, not like all the other Rambam lists of taking your life away from olam haba, but like you're changing the way you relate to Torah. In like a good example of this is like I had my rant about Tehillim this morning in my WhatsApp in my Instagram post about like saying how people don't learn Tehillim enough. And I'm not going to read it. I was going to read Jesse Fishbein posted on Facebook, said like it is even worse because they're taking this great sefer that could be a means of like enhancing relationship with God, and they're making it into a magical incantation. Like so it's not just that they're missing out on the benefit, they're supplanting the real way you're supposed to relate to it with some like counterfeit way to relate to it, and like it's you can't have both. Like either you're relating to Torah, either you're relating to Tehillim as ideas for your soul to get closer to God, or you're relating to it as magic incantation. You can't relate to it as both. So to the Torah, either you're relating to it as parnasa for your goof, or you're relating to it as refuah for your nefesh. So I think that's how you're losing olam haba, and that's maybe why natal chayav min olam haba is you are like you're taking your life out of olam haba, or you're holding your life back from going to olam haba because you're like it's like you're arresting the development of your relationship with chachma. Yeah, Ayala.
Another thought, which I don't know if it's true or applicable to here, is maybe it's kind of like distorting, like this isn't the way that Hashem set up the world to work, that like you're not using chachma maybe, but you're kind of just like doing your own thing and like relying on like people to support you is like, it's like kind of a degrading chachma.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So the interesting thing about that, let me think about that for 1 second here. How is that different from the way that the Rambam put it of when he first said the eyes of the Hamon? He does say Chil Hashem here. Considering desecrating God's name among the masses, who would think that the Torah was just another means of livelihood. Yeah, how is what you're describing different from this?
I guess I was saying if it's not a valid means of livelihood, like it's not like any other job, but it's just like kind of like a cop out that like you can just not use chachma to make money, but instead like rely on this. Unless like someone could say that this is using chachma if you do like set up a system within this.
Right.
And then kind of that it's like a chil Hashem because like Hashem is a source of reality and it's kind of like a distortion of reality of like how man should live.
Right. I hear what you're saying. Just think about it for 1 second. Yeah, I gotta think about that more. Something is slippery about that idea to me. Not that it's not true, but that it feels either too similar to the other stuff we said, or there's a premise in there that I'm having a hard time getting that I question. Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm also not 100% sure, Al, if I understood like exactly what you're saying. So, but would you say that like a person who inherits a lot of money and then doesn't have to work is also lacking in this way because they're not using their chachma to make a parnasa?
That's a good question.
Yeah, right. I guess I not necessarily like the general phenomenon. Like not every case would be like this, but I guess I'm just like thinking of certain cases which like I've seen or heard about where it's like instead of like I don't know, actually like facing the world, the person is just like not growing up and like I don't know,
Right. It's
like
like a
getting money off
deviation
of
from
other
like the
things.
natural course or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. In part. I gotta think about it some more. Let's just actually get the Rambam's thing of Chil Hashem from here, right? So he is attaching the Chil Hashem to the people thinking that the Torah is another means of a livelihood, and he adds that one who does this is Devar Hashem Baza. It's leading to despising of the word of God. Now that phrase, Devar Hashem Baza. Wait, how does he use? What's the is it Yud Yud? Yeah, it's Yud Yud. I just want to see in the Mishneh Torah. I think he says that in another place that might be relevant. I just want to see if he says it in Talmud Torah. I think he says it by teaching kids. Rambam. Oh, only 2 places. Searching. Yep, Hilchos Talmud Torah. Oh, that's interesting. Whew. That is not what I remember. He says, Ki Devar Hashem Baza. So what does that refer to? Someone who despises the word of Hashem. Zeh shelo hishgiach al divrei Torah kol ikar. This is someone who doesn't pay any attention to words of Torah. V'chein kol she'efshar lo la'asok b'Torah v'eino osek. If you are able to be involved in Torah, but you're not involved, O shakara v'shana uperish lahavle ha'olam v'iniach tamud v'znacho, or he learned and reviewed, repeatedly got it sharp, and then he separated from Torah for like the vanities of the world, v'iniach tamud v'znacho, and then he just abandoned his Torah. That's included in someone who degrades the word of Hashem. That's not what I expected. And the other place is in people who degrade Chachamim. Okay, fine. Yeah. So what is he saying here? Because again, he is tying it to what sounds like a degradation of Torah, but he's saying it's a degradation of the Shem Hashem. Like it's very easy to see indirectly it's going to be a degradation of the Shem Hashem because people also aren't going to take him seriously. Like if he's just the the shul rav, in a certain way, like that he's paid to do this. I don't have it clear. Yeah, tomorrow.
Just going back a little, I know the Rambam used both of these phrases, but what like distinction are we making here that we're trying to categorize from one to the other?
Yeah. You mean in the Mishneh Torah?
I guess I'm asking like I feel like we're trying to figure out which ones are desecrating the name of God and which is degrading the Torah, or like what the difference is.
Yeah.
But like, is it so different? I mean, it is like different a little bit, but
I mean the reason why I am assuming it's different is because he does list it, as its own thing. So
right.
to me, it would be like it would be like not uncharacteristically sloppy of the Rambam if he like listed these two things and really just meant that they go together.
And did we try and say explicitly what the difference is?
No, that's what we're trying to do right now.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And look, I mean, I put this, people come to look at Torah as a kli leparnasa, because the Rambam, kli leparnasa, where to use that phrase? Yeah, he did use that phrase earlier, and I'm saying that kli leparnasa is like malacha mina malachos, and kli leparnasa was talking about the kavod of the Torah. Yeah, Ayala?
I don't know if this is too similar to degrading the Torah. Can you say that just like an extension that like Hashem's as the giver of the Torah, by diminishing the value of the Torah, diminishing like the greatness of that Hashem gave us with the Torah?
Okay. Yeah, you could say that. And in fact, once you're going to say that, then I'm just going to go a little bit further than that and say that like the entire way that we relate to Hashem is via the Torah, right? Like directly the Yedias Hashem, sorry, Yedias Hashem, and like the I guess the perfection that we get, which we gain, which allows us to relate to Hashem. Okay, and if the Torah is degraded, then our relationship with Hashem will suffer accordingly. Right, because that's the only means, and the Chachamim are only means also. So if you're degrading yourself and degrading the Torah, then you're not going to be able to be a means of people connecting to it. Yeah, the only problem with that is it gets into the extinguishes the light of the religion. Okay, I think I'm getting to my point of bedtime. So I think I'm going to stop here. I'm glad I feel like we have a much better grasp on the Rambam's view that now that we've seen the full picture. And I think it's a very interesting question, which, again, we're not resolving halachically here about those heterim. But I think what we should do next time is start off not with a review of everything, but just these 5 things, see if we can get it clear, and then go to those who disagree with the Rambam. Okay. All right. I hope people are finding this somewhat interesting, because even though it's not really related practically to everyone, but it, I don't know, this is related to our society. So I hope it's worth, if you don't mind spending 3 sessions on it. And if you do, let me know. Okay. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Good. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Have a good night.
Okay, good. Bye.